Sam Rogers, a 22-year-old college student, woke up on this sunny Saturday with a slight sense of excitement. After a week of intense classes and sleepless nights, he was thrilled at the opportunity to spend the weekend off campus and unwind. He had finally found time to relax, and the invitation from Jason Brown, a new classmate, seemed like the perfect way to do just that. Sam had met Jason in literature class, and Jason had quickly made an impression as someone who could make any day special. He was charming, had a great sense of humor, and was incredibly friendly. They had discovered many shared interests in a short amount of time, and Jason had invited Sam to spend the weekend at his home in the suburbs. Sam remembered how Jason had described his home. "We've got everything here for a perfect weekend, plenty of space, a cozy garden, and a party that will make you forget all your worries." The words sounded enticing, and Sam eagerly accepted the invitation, imagining how wonderful it would be to escape the academic grind for a while. On the day of the trip, Sam arrived at the university with a suitcase and a backpack packed with essentials. Jason greeted him outside the campus with a wide smile, and, after loading Sam's belongings into his old but reliable SUV, they set off for Jason's home. The drive was relaxed, with Jason chatting about his plans for the weekend and sharing interesting stories. Sam, unwinding after a tough week, enjoyed the ride and the lighthearted conversation. When they arrived, Jason led Sam through the gates into his cozy home. Everything was just as Jason had described: spacious rooms, a comfortable living room, and a backyard that was perfect for a party. Sam was impressed and pleasantly surprised by the welcoming atmosphere of the house. As evening settled over Jason's suburban home, the atmosphere began to fill with anticipation. The sounds of music, laughter, and conversation drifted from the open windows as guests started to gather. Jason, dressed in a stylish shirt and wearing a broad smile, greeted everyone with genuine warmth, making his party the center of attention. Watching the scene unfold, Sam felt his initial nervousness gradually fade. Jason was a true master at hosting, and Sam couldn't help but notice the confidence and charisma he exuded. The glass plates filled with snacks, the variety of drinks, and the large veranda illuminated by countless string lights created the perfect setting for the party. Sam quickly immersed himself in the festive atmosphere. He met several interesting people: Rachel, an energetic girl with bright red hair who was passionate about art; Mike, a sporty guy who cheered for the local football team; and Katie, a sweet girl working at a medical center. They were all friendly and open, which helped Sam feel at ease. Despite feeling slightly awkward from the abundance of alcohol and the unfamiliar environment, Sam eagerly joined in the conversations and games. The music was pumping, laughter echoed from every corner of the house, and drinks were constantly being refilled. Jason, seemingly in his element, knew exactly how to keep his guests entertained. He offered Sam a few shots of cocktails, and although Sam was cautious at first, he soon relaxed and started enjoying the evening. As the night went on, Sam began to feel the effects of the alcohol, and his mood became even more jovial. Jason, as expected, was at the center of it all, actively engaging in conversations and organizing contests. All of this made Sam feel like part of the group, and he savored every moment. At one point, the party became especially lively. People formed small groups, discussing their plans and sharing stories. Sam and Jason frequently exchanged jokes and laughed at amusing situations, bringing them closer together. Everything seemed perfect, and Sam had no idea that this night, which had started so joyfully, might end very differently. Only later would he realize that not everything that seems perfect truly is. As time passed, the evening, which had started as carefree fun, gradually shifted into a more relaxed state. The guests became increasingly laid back, and Jason, seemingly pleased with how things were going, continued to pour drinks and keep the conversations flowing. Sam, caught up in the heart of the festivities, couldn't help but notice how his own state was beginning to change. After a few shots of cocktails that Jason eagerly offered, Sam felt his energy starting to wane. At first, it was just small signs. His head began to spin slightly, and he found it harder to concentrate. But soon, these signs escalated into a more profound sense of fatigue. Each sip of alcohol he took felt heavier, and his thoughts grew more tangled. Looking around, Sam noticed that the atmosphere in the room had started to shift. The guests, who had been friendly and open just moments ago, began to behave strangely. The laughter, which had once seemed genuine and contagious, now sounded unnatural. People's movements and speech grew increasingly distorted, and their words seemed more garbled. Even Jason didn't seem the same. His smile was a bit too wide, and his eyes sparkled with an odd, unhealthy gleam. Sam tried to pull himself together, but his strength was fading fast. Suddenly, he noticed one of the guests slowly moving toward him, their eyes fixed on him with a look of confusion. Sam tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate, and he felt as if everything around him was melting and blending into a haze. Time seemed to slow down. People's movements became more convoluted, their words less clear. At one point, as his head began to loll to one side, Sam saw Jason and a few others exchanging strange glances. It was as if there was an invisible but crucial exchange happening between them. Sam struggled to focus, but his body was no longer under his control. Suddenly, he felt his strength leave him completely. As he collapsed onto the couch, he saw Jason and a few others from the group gathering around him. Their faces blurred, and their conversations turned into a loud, incomprehensible noise. Before he could make sense of what was happening, darkness enveloped him, and he lost consciousness. In those final moments, as he hovered on the edge of awareness, he felt an overwhelming sense of fear, but he could no longer think of anything. Everything around him faded into blackness. Sam woke up in the dim light, feeling a pounding headache and overwhelming weakness. He tried to lift his head, but it felt too heavy. For a few seconds, he remained in a state of complete confusion, trying to understand what had happened to him. Opening his eyes, Sam saw metallic walls surrounding him on all sides. The dark, shiny panels reflected the faint light seeping in from a door that was slightly ajar. The floor was black and seemed to be tiled or covered with metal panels. The room was gloomy and eerily quiet, with only the occasional creak breaking the heavy silence. Sam sat up, pressing his hands to his head to cope with the intensifying headache. As he tried to recall what had happened, he noticed his phone lying on the floor. He reached for it, but when he tried to pick it up, he realized the screen was shattered. The triangular shards of glass and broken internal components looked like the phone hadn't survived a rough fall. He got to his feet, feeling his body resist. Looking around, he saw that the place he had ended up in resembled part of some industrial facility or basement, outfitted for some specialized purpose. It was freezing inside, and Sam felt his body begin to tremble from both fear and cold. Still not fully recovered from the shock, Sam cautiously began to examine the room he found himself in more closely. His hands were still trembling from fear, but he understood that he needed to act if he wanted to find a way out. He couldn't afford to panic. Apart from the metallic walls and the dark floor, there were several items scattered in the corners of the room. On one of the metal shelves lay old, dusty bottles and boxes, and in the corner stood a chair with one of its legs broken. In the center of the room was a large metal crate that looked like part of some equipment. Sam carefully approached it and lifted the lid slightly, only to find a pile of old rags and tools inside. Suddenly, his gaze fell upon something unusual on the floor. Taking a closer look, he noticed small, almost indistinguishable red drops trailing from the door into the corridor. His heart raced. He bent down to examine them more closely and saw that the drops became larger and more distinct as they moved toward the exit of the room. Sam crept toward the door, trying to be as cautious as possible. The bloodstains led to the exit, and he realized they might indicate that something terrible had happened. Fear completely took hold of him, but he couldn't allow himself to retreat. If someone had been hurt here, he needed to know who it was and possibly find help. He carefully stepped into the corridor, following the bloodstains. The hallway was dark and seemed endless, with walls made of the same metal as the room where he had woken up. Sam noticed that the light here was even dimmer than in the room itself, and the sounds of his footsteps echoed off the walls, creating the eerie sensation that he wasn't alone. The bloodstains led down the corridor, through several turns. Sam felt his fear intensify with each step. He noticed that in some places, the stains became wider and denser, as if someone had left them while fleeing or as a result of a struggle. Suddenly, a door appeared before him, slightly ajar like the previous one. Sam stopped, trying to remain silent. He pressed his ear against the door, listening for any sounds from behind it. Suddenly, strange noises caught his attention, faint sounds resembling someone's groans or whispers emanating from behind the door. Sam hesitated between fear and determination. He took a deep breath and, summoning the last of his courage, cautiously pushed the door open. Inside, he saw a semi-flooded room with scattered objects and blurred bloodstains. In the far corner lay a person. But fortunately, they were conscious and didn't appear severely injured. It was Mike. Suppressing his own fear, Sam hurried over to Mike. "God, what happened? Do you need help?" he exclaimed, kneeling beside him. Mike, who had visible injuries on his body, just looked at Sam in horror and replied in a weak voice, "Sam, we need to leave here. This place, it's not what it seems." Sam felt his fear turn into determination. He knew they needed to act quickly. Leaving Mike behind in the hope of finding nearby help, Sam continued to explore the premises, hoping to find an exit and understand what was truly happening in this nightmare. Sam cautiously left the room and stepped into the dark corridor, where only a faint light seeped through the broken lamps. Each step echoed, and the silence felt suffocating. His fear only grew, but he knew he couldn't just sit and wait. He had to figure out what had happened and find a way out of there. The first few rooms he checked were empty, but soon he stumbled upon something disturbing. In one of the adjacent rooms, he saw torn belongings, shredded pillows, an overturned table, and scraps of clothing that looked as if someone had tried to resist or fight. Broken items were scattered in the corner of the room, and one of the drawers had been pulled out and its contents strewn across the floor. As he moved further, Sam found a room with dishes scattered around and bloodstains left behind. On the table lay the remnants of a book, its pages torn and marked with bloody traces. It looked like an act of rage, and Sam felt panic starting to overtake him again. He glanced around and noticed an old metal door with a heavy lock at the back of the room. His heart raced at the thought that this door might be hiding something even more horrifying. In the deeper parts of the house, Sam noticed strange items, a set of knives, scattered syringes, and vials of unknown liquids. All of this pointed to the fact that the place had once been used for something very unusual. In one of the corners, he found strange symbols drawn on the walls and floor. They were done in red and looked like part of some ritual. His breathing became rapid as he realized the atmosphere in the house was growing increasingly menacing. In one room, he discovered a broken mirrored cabinet, reflecting his pale, frightened face. The glass was shattered, and shards had fallen to the floor, some stained with blood. Desperately trying to control his rising panic, Sam continued to explore. In one of the last rooms he checked, his attention was drawn to several photographs pinned to the walls. They depicted people in various scenes of fear and violence. These photographs had been cut out from magazines and newspapers, with some of them marked with noticeable notes and captions. The sight of them only heightened his sense of dread. Realizing that all of this pointed to Jason being involved in something dangerous and illegal, Sam knew he had to quickly find an escape and contact help. Just then, his eyes fell on an open window in the room, and he finally felt a glimmer of hope for escape. Sam returned to Mike with the intention of helping him reach the room with the window. "Mike, we're getting out of here." When Mike didn't respond, Sam moved closer. Mike was no longer breathing. Overwhelmed by fear and tension, Sam realized he needed to act quickly. He returned to the open door of the room and headed towards the window, which was dimly lit by the faint light of the night sky. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and the weak light barely filtered through, plunging everything around him into darkness. He knew he didn't have time to search for a safer exit and decided to take advantage of what he had. Moving slowly and cautiously, Sam made his way to the window, which was slightly ajar. His heart raced as he realized this was his only chance. He pushed the window open and climbed out, landing in a low shrub that slightly cushioned his fall. Sam, feeling that his fear and exhaustion threatened his focus, took a deep breath and began moving towards the road. The cloud-covered sky made it hard to see, and every shadow seemed like a potential threat. He walked along the roadside, keeping his head up, hoping to catch a glimpse of light. Suddenly, he noticed the headlights of a car cutting through the darkness. This was his only hope. Sam waved his arms and shouted as loudly as he could, even though his voice was hoarse from fear and tension. His efforts were rewarded. The car slowed down and stopped at the side of the road. Sam saw that it was a couple, and they looked concerned. The man, who was driving, was the first to step out of the car. He was dressed in a tracksuit and looked like someone who had just returned from an evening run. The woman sitting next to him looked alarmed. They both approached Sam, their eyes full of worry. "Hey, are you okay? Are you all right?" the man asked, his voice gentle but tinged with concern. Sam struggled to find the words, his voice trembling with fear. "I was kidnapped. I just escaped from some strange house. I need help, please." The woman, noticing the dirt and bloodstains on his clothes, immediately grabbed her phone and called the police. The man put his arm around Sam, trying to comfort him, and offered him a seat in the car to warm up and collect himself. Sam, feeling the tension slowly start to ease but still shaken by the ordeal, gratefully sat in the front seat. While the woman spoke with the dispatcher, the man retrieved a blanket from the trunk and wrapped it around Sam. They offered him water and tried to calm him down by asking questions about what had happened. Sam told them that he had been at a friend's house, who appeared to be involved in something very dangerous. By the time the police arrived, Sam was in a more stable condition, and his statement was taken in detail. The police immediately went to the address he provided to investigate the house and determine what had occurred. Although Sam was now safe, he knew that his story was only just beginning and that he would have to face the consequences of this terrifying experience. Sam thanked his rescuers, who then continued on their way, leaving their contact information in case the police needed to ask additional questions. As he found himself in safety once more, it became clear to him that this nightmarish adventure would haunt him for a long time to come. When the couple brought Sam to a safe place, a small 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town, he immediately felt a sense of relief. Hidden from the darkness of the night, the brightly lit and cozy establishment gave him a feeling of security. He nodded gratefully to the man and woman before they left, but their help wasn't over yet. They would have to give statements to the police. Despite his physical and emotional exhaustion, Sam understood the importance of every detail. He dialed the police number and asked to speak with the duty officer. The voice on the other end of the line was confident and calm, which helped Sam relax a little. "Hello, I just escaped from someone who seems to be involved in something terrible," he began, his voice trembling with anxiety. "My name is Sam Richardson. I was at the house of a new friend named Jason. I think he's dangerous. I was locked in a room with metal walls, and when I got out, I saw signs of blood and chaos." There was also Mike. The officer, listening carefully, asked Sam to describe Jason and provide as much information as possible about what had happened. Sam quickly listed the details. Jason was friendly, but after the party, his behavior became strange and insistent. "After the party, I lost consciousness, and when I woke up, I found myself locked in a room. The room had metal walls and a dark floor, along with a broken phone and bloodstains in other parts of the house. But I managed to escape through a window and called for help." The officer noted all the details and asked Sam to wait while they sent another patrol to check the address provided. Sam sank into the chair and tried to relax as his nerves slowly calmed. His thoughts were filled with fear and anxiety about the possibility that his pursuer might still be at large and continue to pose a threat. While he waited, the diner staff offered him tea and water, trying to make his stay more comfortable. After a few minutes, a detective arrived at the diner to take additional statements from Sam and clarify the details. She was professional and attentive, which gave Sam a sense of reassurance. The detective recorded a few more details, such as the potential location of the house and Jason's last words that Sam remembered. He also mentioned that he was under stress and that not all the details might be accurate. After everything was documented and Sam signed the necessary papers, the detective assured him that they would do everything possible to find Jason and figure out what had happened. Although Sam was still worried that his situation wasn't resolved, he felt some relief knowing that his story had been heard and taken seriously. He left the diner, following the detective's instructions, who promised to keep him updated, and headed home, hoping that everything would soon become clear. The police arrived at the scene shortly after Sam's call, and the night fog shrouding Jason's house added an extra layer of gloom to an already sinister atmosphere. The headlights of the patrol cars cut through the evening darkness, casting long shadows on the facade of the old mansion. Detectives, forensic experts, and technical specialists gathered at the scene, ready to begin their investigation. Detective Lisa Hartman, a seasoned investigator, led the team. She had carefully listened to the report from Sam, which she had received earlier at the diner, and directed her colleagues towards Jason's house. She began her inspection outside, checking the windows and doors for signs of forced entry or other tampering. When the team entered the house, the first thing that caught their attention was the complete devastation and disorder. The room where Sam had been locked up looked like the epicenter of chaos. The metallic walls and dark floor created an oppressive atmosphere, and the investigators immediately noticed bloodstains leading out of this room. Forensic experts began meticulously collecting blood samples and other traces, while detectives explored the rest of the house. They uncovered several key pieces of evidence. In one room, they found torn pieces of paper with illegible notes and symbols that, at first glance, made no sense but could indicate a particular system or ritual. In a technical room, various tools and materials were discovered that could have been used to create locked rooms. One of the boxes contained ropes, duct tape, and other items that could have been used to restrain people. In one of the rooms, they found a surveillance camera pointed at the front door. The footage was overloaded, but several clips showed Jason frequently entering and leaving this room at specific hours, suggesting his active involvement in what was happening. Neighbors confirmed that they had heard strange noises and screams coming from the house, but no one had paid much attention since Jason had never aroused any suspicions before. While the forensic team worked on gathering evidence, detectives interviewed people who might have known Jason. Testimonies from Sam's college peers and his friends confirmed that Jason had a reputation as a rather odd person, but no one knew anything specific about his potential criminal activities. Detective Hartman submitted a request to the database to check for any possible connections between Jason and previously registered crimes. It was crucial to determine if he had been involved in any suspicious activities before or had ties to known criminals. As she reflected on the evidence and testimonies, Lisa Hartman realized that this case had deeper roots than just a nighttime incident involving one person. Jason appeared to be part of something larger and more dangerous. As the investigation continued, detectives and forensic experts gathered more and more evidence, trying to figure out what role Jason played and what lay behind his actions. With each passing hour, the investigation became more complex and convoluted, but Lisa was determined to solve this mystery and uncover the full truth about what had happened in Jason's house. The next day began with intensified reviews and analysis of the evidence collected at Jason's house. The team of detectives, led by Lisa Hartman in their office, was determined to uncover the truth behind the strange findings in Jason's behavior. It quickly became clear to the police that this case extended beyond a single crime. Lisa Hartman requested data on the symbols and notes that had been found, leading to unexpected results. It soon became evident that similar symbols and ritual practices had been observed in other cases involving abductions and violence. A search through criminal databases revealed similar cases of violence and kidnappings connected to a group that had previously been unknown to the general public. This group was involved not only in physical violence but also in psychological pressure on the victims, fitting well with the evidence found. The surveillance footage from Jason's house was carefully analyzed. In some of the recordings, suspicious figures could be seen moving around the house at night. These figures were identified as individuals previously linked to other cases associated with that same group. Neighbors and acquaintances of Jason reported that he often hosted guests late at night and held strange gatherings. According to the neighbors, Jason had many mysterious visitors whom they had never seen before. The efforts led to the discovery of similar kidnapping cases in other regions, which also shared certain common traits, such as the use of confined spaces and ritual practices. These cases gave the detectives reason to believe that Jason was part of a larger criminal network. This new information significantly complicated the case, as it became clear that Jason was likely not acting alone. As the investigation expanded, it became evident that the criminal group had an extensive network, and each new discovery only added depth to the case. Lisa Hartman understood that they now needed to act quickly to stop the group before they could cause more harm. The dangerous actions and suspicious connections uncovered during the investigation confirmed her fears that Jason and his accomplices might only be part of a broader threat. The work to expose the group continued, and each new lead raised more questions. What was the victim's connection to the group? Why was Jason chosen as one of its members? And most importantly, how many more such projects were hidden behind the facades of homes? These questions remained unanswered, but the detectives were determined to uncover the full truth and stop the criminal activity before it was too late. As the police continued their thorough search and investigation, Sam decided to take matters into his own hands and continue his own investigation. Realizing that every new piece of evidence could bring them closer to unraveling the criminal network, he set out to gather information about Jason. His goal was to find additional clues that might aid in exposing Jason's criminal activities and connections. Sam began delving into Jason's past. He reviewed old photographs, social media profiles, and public records. As he scrutinized the information, he uncovered records of Jason's previous workplaces and residences, as well as details about his former acquaintances. Digging deeper, Sam discovered that Jason had connections with various shady individuals, including frequent patrons of criminal bars and clubs. He found several addresses associated with these people and decided to investigate them. During his search, Sam uncovered a few suspicious bank transactions and documents that could indicate illegal activities by Jason. He discovered records of frequent money transfers and large sums of money that did not match Jason's official income. As Sam continued to collect evidence, he began receiving anonymous threats. Initially, these were just inconspicuous messages in his email and text messages, but soon they became more direct and persistent. One message warned him that his actions were putting his life in danger and that he should stop his investigation. These threats heightened Sam's fears. He began to worry about his safety, especially when he noticed that he was being followed. Sam observed suspicious vehicles seemingly monitoring his home and started fearing that he might become a target of the criminal group. Sam decided to report the threats and the evidence he had gathered to the police. He handed over all his records, documents, and information. The police took his data seriously. Despite the police's support, Sam felt the pressure mounting. His actions began to worry his family and friends, who feared for his safety. Sam faced difficulties trying to maintain a normal life as his personal investigation became increasingly dangerous and tense. Despite the fear and threats, Sam resolved not to give up. His determination and desire to help expose the criminal network only grew stronger. He understood that his actions could prove crucial in revealing Jason's activities and those of the other members of the group. Despite the ongoing tension and fear, Sam continues to stay in touch with the police, providing them with new information and evidence about Jason and his criminal activities. Relying on the data collected by Sam, the police begin planning a major operation to apprehend Jason and any potential accomplices. The police carefully analyze all the evidence and identify several possible locations where Jason might be hiding. They develop an operation plan that includes raids on several addresses connected to Jason's activities. The operation involves investigators, field agents, and special forces. The police start by checking several addresses linked to Jason. One of the first places they investigate is one of his old residences, but nothing is found there. They also check other possible hideouts, but to no avail. Based on further investigations and surveillance, the police receive information about an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town that could serve as Jason's hideout. Sam helps confirm this information by pointing out the warehouse's connection to Jason's activities. This location becomes the primary target for the next phase of the operation. The police develop a strategy for the raid on the warehouse. Given Jason's previous actions and potential armament, the operation must be meticulously planned and executed with caution. The plan is to surround the warehouse, conduct a breach operation, and ensure the safety of all participants. On the night of the operation, the police surround the warehouse and begin preparations for the raid. A quiet entry operation is initiated to minimize risk to personnel and prevent Jason from escaping. The team of field agents enters the warehouse, following the planned approach. Inside the warehouse, the police encounter various signs of criminal activity. They find evidence of violence, weapons, and drugs, which confirm Jason's connection to the criminal organization. Finally, in one of the dark rooms of the warehouse, the police find Jason attempting to hide. He resists arrest but is apprehended with the help of special forces. Despite his resistance, Jason is arrested and taken to the police station. The police begin interrogations to uncover all the details of his criminal activities and potential connections with other members of the criminal network. After the successful completion of the operation, Sam receives thanks from the police and the public for his contribution to the investigation. Although he still experiences fear and anxiety, knowing that Jason has been apprehended brings him relief. The police continue their work to dismantle the entire criminal network using the data collected during the operation. After Jason's arrest and transfer to the police station, all attention is focused on the interrogation. The police hope to gain crucial insights into Jason's criminal activities, his accomplices, and his motives. While Jason appears calm and shows no signs of remorse, his candor during the interrogation shocks everyone present. Before the interrogation begins, Jason goes through standard procedures, including identification and biometric data collection. Psychologist and experienced investigator Michael Rivers prepares for the conversation with Jason. They understand that this interrogation is critical and aim to encourage Jason to be forthcoming by offering a plea deal for reduced charges in exchange for a confession and cooperation. Jason sits in front of the investigators in a formal yet relaxed manner. He shows neither fear nor remorse, only indifference. The investigators start with general discussion to build rapport. Jason responds to questions with clear calmness, which raises some suspicion among the investigators. Gradually, the interrogation shifts to specific details. Jason begins to describe his criminal activities, explaining how he organized his crimes. He shares information about how he selected his victims. Approaching the process with a carefully thought-out strategy, Jason admits that he used his charisma and charm to gain the trust of potential victims and lure them into traps. Jason details the methods he used for abductions and violence. He describes how he created situations where victims felt safe before turning to violent actions. He explains that he employed various manipulations and psychological tactics to avoid suspicion and remain unnoticed. Jason reveals his criteria for choosing victims, including their social status, loneliness, and vulnerability. He admits that he selected those who were most vulnerable and used their trust in him as a means to achieve his goals. This aspect particularly captures the investigators' attention, as it may aid in uncovering other crimes and networks. Throughout the interrogation, Jason maintains composure, displaying an absolute lack of remorse. He speaks about his actions with a sense of cynicism, as if it were all merely part of his job. His calmness and insensitivity create a tense atmosphere in the interrogation room. Once Jason has provided all the necessary information, the investigators pause to discuss the next steps. They understand that Jason's confessions open up new avenues for investigation and help establish connections between his crimes and other cases. The investigators exchange information with the prosecutor and other members of the legal team to prepare the necessary documentation for charges. They also begin planning how to use the obtained confessions to build a case against Jason and his potential accomplices. The information provided by Jason leads to further investigations and the uncovering of other crimes. Jason becomes a central figure in the investigation, and his confessions play a key role in revealing broader networks of criminal activity. While Sam feels relief that Jason has been apprehended, he remains struck by the scale of the criminal activities and the inner workings of criminal organizations. Months have passed since Jason's arrest and subsequent trial. Sam is still recovering from the trauma and fear, but he feels a sense of relief that justice has been served. This chapter concludes the story, showing how Sam adapts to his new reality and how his life continues to change after the events he experienced. At the trial, Jason is found guilty on all counts, including abduction, violence, and orchestrating criminal activities. He is sentenced to a long prison term. The court proceedings go smoothly, and Jason accepts his sentence with the same calm demeanor he displayed during the interrogation. His conviction stands as a symbol of justice, but for Sam, it is only the first step towards healing. Sam has mixed feelings about Jason's conviction. While he feels a measure of justice, the deep fear and stress he endured do not vanish. He struggles with daily life, experiencing anxiety when interacting with others and when alone. These fears and experiences impact his social life and studies. Recognizing the need for help, Sam begins seeing a psychologist. In therapy sessions, he works through his fears and anxieties, discusses the events he endured, and learns to cope with the aftermath of stress. The psychologist helps him understand that he can recover and rebuild his life despite the trauma he experienced. Gradually, Sam starts to return to a normal life. He resumes his studies at college and attempts to rebuild his social connections. Despite his internal struggles, he finds solace in familiar activities and hobbies. He also begins engaging in sports and active pastimes to help manage his anxiety and improve his mental state. Sam realizes that he may never completely rid himself of fear, but he begins working on not letting these fears control his life. He becomes more aware of his triggers and learns to manage his emotional state. His inner drive for recovery and a positive future becomes the foundation of his daily life. Amidst all the trials he has faced, Sam starts to notice that he has become stronger and more mature. He develops new skills and interests that help him feel more confident. Although the scars from the trauma remain, he finds ways to adapt and move forward. Sam accepts that he will never fully forget what happened, but he decides not to let his fears dictate his life. He continues to work on himself and build his life as he desires, despite the deep impact of past events. Finally, Sam feels ready to leave the past behind and look towards the future with optimism. He understands that his life will not be the same, but he also realizes that he has the strength to overcome fear and move forward. More than 6 months have passed since Jason's arrest, and Sam's life is gradually returning to normal. He realizes that despite all the trials he has endured, he has a chance for a fresh start. Sam goes back to college, where he feels at home but with a certain wariness. He decides to focus on his studies and coursework to prevent fear from taking over. In class, he tries to actively participate, assisting professors and working on projects. Gradually, the academic process becomes a form of therapy, allowing him to distract himself from thoughts of the past. In his quest to rediscover himself, Sam begins exploring new interests he has always wanted to try but never had the time for. He enrolls in photography classes and starts engaging in sports, testing his skills in swimming and cycling. These hobbies not only help him regain a sense of control but also bring joy and satisfaction. Sam continues to see his therapist, who helps him deal with the remaining fears and anxieties. Through therapy, he comes to understand the importance of accepting his feelings and working to prevent them from controlling his life. The therapist also helps him develop strategies for overcoming anxious thoughts and viewing the past in a more constructive way. He gradually re-engages with his social circle, participating in gatherings and events. At first, he feels a bit out of place, but with each interaction, his confidence grows, and he begins to enjoy socializing and spending time with loved ones. Recognizing that fear and anxiety can no longer dictate his life, Sam starts making plans for the future. He begins to think about his career and potential opportunities that might interest him. He considers internship options and professional growth opportunities that could help him utilize his talents and interests. Sam understands that the events of the past will leave a mark on his life, but he decides not to let them define his future. He starts writing about his experiences and feelings, creating a journal that helps him express his thoughts and emotions. This practice helps him better understand himself and accept what has happened as part of his journey. Sam realizes that while he cannot change the past, he can choose how to respond to it. Each day, he feels increasingly confident and ready to move forward. He begins to enjoy the small things in life and appreciate every moment that brings joy and satisfaction. Sam sits at a table in a cozy college auditorium, preparing to give a lecture. His materials and notes are spread out beside him, but his focus is on the audience of students and faculty gathered for his talk. His eyes reflect the resolve and calm he has gained throughout his journey of recovery. In recent weeks, Sam has been diligently preparing for this moment. He has organized his notes, refined his narrative, and prepared a presentation detailing his experiences and the lessons learned from his harrowing ordeal. The preparation included not only the events but also advice on recognizing potential dangers and how to act in critical situations. Sam begins his lecture by sharing his personal story with the audience. He describes in detail how he found himself in a dangerous situation, how he managed to cope with the horrors of that night, and the lessons he learned from the experience. He emphasizes the importance of vigilance and caution, as well as the necessity of seeking help if something seems suspicious. Throughout his talk, Sam openly shares the feelings and fears he has overcome. His speech is filled with sincerity and emotion, and the audience listens attentively, feeling the significance of his words. He stresses the importance of not being alone with one's fears and worries but seeking support and assistance. After the lecture, Sam opens the floor for questions. Students and faculty ask about his experiences, stress management techniques, and ways to protect oneself. Sam answers all questions honestly, sharing his insights and advice. The questions and discussions allow him to delve deeper into details and offer additional recommendations. At the end of the lecture, Sam receives numerous thanks and positive feedback from the attendees. Several students approach him to express their personal gratitude for sharing his story. He feels that his experience can genuinely help others, which further boosts his confidence. As Sam returns home after the lecture, he reflects on how far he has come. He understands that, while he cannot change the past, he can use his experiences to make the world a slightly safer place for others. This realization brings him satisfaction and a sense of closure. Inspired by his presentation, Sam starts to think about how he can continue his efforts to raise awareness and warn others. He considers participating in public events, volunteering, and other projects that could help people and improve their safety. Sam looks to the future with confidence, ready to face new challenges and continue his path, helping others along the way.